Right there. Dom, I'm going to start with you on this one. Are buzzer beaters good for women's college basketball and their ratings?
Yeah, I mean, Kale, buzzer beaters are good for basketball in any sense. It adds excitement to an already NCAA tournament that you don't really see too many upsets like you did with the men's. I think that's a problem with the women's bracket. And so you saw all one seeds once again make it to the Final Four, something you just don't see with men's basketball. But in terms of ratings, it's tough because unfortunately it's just the way it is with women's sports right now. But I like the fact that it's a day before the men's championship. It allows people to not lose their hype for the men's championship and have to regain it trying to watch the women's game after. And it's just the whole thing in general. It's another great storyline, a team that you didn't think was going to win. And you touched on it earlier. UConn not being in there, it's great to see dominance, but it's great to see new teams getting in there. I think it makes it less repetitive and easier for people to get attached to women's college basketball.
Yeah, Cal, what it does is it dims that conversation that UConn hurts women's basketball, which was really ridiculous to begin with. But as far as a ratings push, I'm not so sure. When you look at the semifinal game between UConn and Notre Dame, it was the highest rated Final Four game since 2013. So this stuff is not linear. As much as it's exciting to see a buzzer beater, it's not really, in terms of the measurements, it's not showing you that it's a much better game right now or growing at a huge rate compared to what it was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, buzzer beaters aren't just good for basketball. They're great for basketball. This is your typical 3, 2, 1 backyard basketball, taking up that last shot, national championship. Great finish. But I think what's better for this tournament, you didn't mention the rating, Connor, but UConn's women's team is just getting too dominant. I think the fact that they lost in the Final Four maybe added a little interest. You didn't know who was going to win this final game. You want to see if Notre Dame can keep the magic run alive, which they did. So I think if UConn, honestly, if they just don't make the Final Four for the next couple of years, I think it adds more parity and more people will be interested.
Yeah, I don't think there's a great shot of that to begin with, but I guess here's what it did is the people that weren't watching to begin with said, oh, wow, UConn lost.
Exactly.
But I think that's where it stops. I don't think this is going to take people that weren't watching before and take them to the TV. I think you looked at the ratings numbers as well. The streaming numbers, they're all up, but that's only because streaming is a new entity, and that's just going to keep going up because it's a different way to watch. Mm-hmm. But I don't think this moves the needle. If you weren't watching women's college hoops before, these were great games, singular games, that made for an exciting Final Four, but I don't see how it changes anything.
But if Connor, if we're talking about ratings now, understandable, maybe it doesn't change it now, but progressively though, and it's women in general is just trying to get their sports more watched, it's a progressive change, and I think this game has an easy long-term effect, maybe for next season where they can have that promo video of her making the buzzer beater shot. It allows for that just a whole season of hype-up build for the next year of women's college basketball. I mean, it's easy to get that with a men's sport, but you don't really see that with women's sports, and that's what you got last night, and that's what you got in the Final Four, and it makes next season even more entertaining for anybody who's just trying to newly get into women's college basketball.
I think what's more likely is that you get excited when it's the Final Four again, and we had 4 #1 seeds this year in the women's tournament. So yeah, you'll tune in for excellent basketball then, but I don't think this is going to change that mid-November UConn-Tennessee rating or anything like that.
It helps there be more upsets too.
It asks the question, what is going to make women's basketball more popular to watch? Do you need a team that can compete with UConn, be at that top tier year after year like Tennessee was back in the early 2000s? Or do you need UConn to just simply go by the wayside, get some 6 seeds in the Final Four? And I think personally, dynasties are great for sports. It makes you tune in like Brady and Belichick, but sometimes they're too dominant. This UConn's team, 10 of 19 national championships. That's way too many in a row. It's time for them to take a backseat. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think if it does, it'll help get the sport.
And I'll just push back quickly that if UConn was not dominant, they didn't have these 100-game winning streaks, no one's knowing a thing about women's college basketball.
That's also true.
And that's just the reality of it.
And people watch the men's tournament for upsets, and hopefully that's what we see more with the women's tournament that gets people more excited to watch that as well.